It's final season. Womp womp. The time of year where students are told to study, as though that's some simple activity and not multiple skill sets wearing a trench coat. Hi, I'm Rosalie, and I love going to school so much that I got a master's degree in library science. You know, like books. I've done a lot of studying, and for some reason, it's often viewed as something that everybody's able to figure out how to do on their own just because different people prefer different methods. But study techniques are actually really hard to figure out how to do on your own, and there's no reason why they shouldn't be explicitly taught. So that's what this video is for. And here we're going to go over motivation and creating a conducive study environment, scheduling study sessions, study techniques, and outside resources for information. And then we're going to do a little wrap up. You ready? Good, because here we go. You're not always going to be motivated to study for tests, even with grades and deadlines looming, and this is especially true for people with some disabilities or mental illnesses. Sometimes you're going to have to study even when you don't have the motivation to do it, and that can be really hard or even painful. Generating motivation intrinsically is not easy, so I like to focus on the barriers that are making it harder for me to start studying rather than my own lack of motivation. Think of it like trying to climb an invisible wall. Rather than building a ladder, you're making the wall shorter. Your brain takes a lot of cues from your environment, so you want to choose a study space that puts you in the mood to study. Being in your bedroom is going to make you want to sleep and scroll through your phone because that's what you normally do there. Instead, it's good to go out and find somewhere like a library or a coffee shop where other people are already working. Seeing them working will tell your brain that it's time to work. Alternatively, if going out isn't an option for you, you can try watching co-working or co-studying streams on sites like Twitch. In these streams, the streamer and the audience are all working on their own individual tasks at the same time, so it feels like there are other people around you working. In this world of technology that we live in, getting distracted by our phones or other things on our computer is basically a daily occurrence. To manage phone distractions, you can try setting time limits on certain apps or all of your apps. Or you can try using an app like Hank Green's Focus Friend that's geared at reducing phone usage. I personally have a special lock screen that I put on my phone whenever I really need to focus up that says, "Do your work," on a red background. Because this is so different from my normal lock screen, it interrupts me when I go to pick up my phone out of habit to start using it without thinking. You can use similar time limit settings on your computer to manage how much you can use certain apps or certain websites. A lot of people like to silence all of their notifications so that way the noise or the pop-up doesn't distract them. I personally like to have a separate browser window opened where I can just make new tabs every time I think of something that's going to distract me. This way, the thought gets to go somewhere. I don't have to worry about forgetting it, and my brain doesn't get bored by only focusing on one thing for an entire study session. This is not a method that works for everyone, but it goes to show that doing what works for you and not what you think should work for you is always going to be the best option. Something worth paying attention to is the way that sensory inputs can affect your desire to work and your ability to focus. You're not going to be able to control every sensory experience in every environment, like in a library. You're not going to be able to ask them to turn off the lights, but there are still some things that you can do in order to set yourself up for success. Make the light level work for you. If you're in your own space, you can brighten or dim the lights as you need. And if you're not in your own space, you can use tools like sunglasses or blue light glasses or reading lights to set the light level to what you need it to be. If you find that you're getting too much visual input when you're working on your computer, you can make your window full screen to minimize the amount of distracting colors and movements that you can see from your desktop. This one is huge for me. If I'm not getting the right auditory inputs, I'm not getting anything done. Some people need total silence to study. If this is you, you may need earplugs or over-ear noise-canceling headphones or construction earmuffs. Other people need music. If this is you, find music that works in the moment. I need different genres depending on what I'm working on. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. Whether you like lo-fi or metal while you're working, do what works for you. Still others need ambiance. There are lots of websites and apps and YouTube channels that have just ambiance where you can adjust the noises to be how you want, or maybe you can just go sit at a coffee shop. It sounds like a coffee shop in there. I cannot stress this enough. If you are in public and you are listening to anything, I'm talking music, podcasts, videos, coffee shop noises, doesn't matter. you have to be wearing headphones. If you're not wearing headphones, if you can't wear headphones, then listening to something in public is not an option for you. Other people are also working. My high school French teacher always told us to wear pajamas during finals. That way we would be as comfortable as possible during our tests. She was kind of right. If you're not comfortable in your physical space, then it's going to be really hard to focus because part of your brain is always going to be thinking about how uncomfortable you are. Wear comfy clothes. Sit in a chair that supports your back. Stretch. Breathe. If being out in public is hard because of a sensitivity to smells, you can try wearing a mask to cut down on the amount you can smell. Or if you need specific smells to study, you can try wearing a scented lip balm under your mask so that way you're only smelling that. Alternatively, if you're at home, you can light a candle or incense or use a reed diffuser to make your space smell how you want. I thought this one was silly at first, but it can actually be kind of game-changing. If you find that you're having trouble focusing, sometimes it can be helpful to have a flavor going on, whether that means eating a mint or chewing gum or having a little beverage. By giving your brain this little bit of stimulation, it makes focusing less tiresome. This one's hot right now. Another way to get yourself motivated is through positive reinforcement. We're living in a treat economy. Have something that you like ready to enjoy after you're done with a specific amount of work. For instance, eating a piece of candy after you've studied for an hour, or playing a video game you like for an hour or two after you've gone through your flashcards 5 times. This way, you do the hard thing, and then you do something that makes your brain release happy chemicals, so that way the hard thing doesn't seem as bad anymore. This technique works for a lot of people, so you might like it. But keep in mind, this is meant to be positive reinforcement. Make sure that your goals are realistically achievable by you. If right now you struggle to study for more than 15 minutes at a time, don't make your goal an hour straight of studying. That's not something that you can realistically achieve. If you can't meet your goals, then you're never going to get that positive reinforcement. Similarly, if you find yourself being mean or restrictive by saying things like, I can't do anything fun until I've done all of my work, or I can't believe I didn't even eat one piece of candy today. What am I even doing? Why am I even trying? Then this technique is not for you. And that's fine. It's not for me. Unfortunately, even if you have everything set up in the best way possible for you, there are still going to be times when your brain doesn't want to study. I wish that there was a trick or a little life hack I could tell you to suddenly make it easier for you, but there isn't. The best way to deal with this is by using the part of your brain that says, this is going to be really, really challenging. It's going to be hard, and I'm not going to like it, and I'm going to do it anyway. Even if I'm doing it scared, even if I'm doing it poorly, even if I'm doing it at 1-minute increments with 10-minute breaks in between, I'm going to do this. Practicing thoughts is like exercising a muscle. The more you do it, the easier it gets to use. Also, we aren't shitting here. There is no, this should be easy. There will be no, I should be able to do this. And I will not accept, this is easy for everybody else, so I must be uniquely a failure. If this is hard for you, then it's hard. Full stop. If you try to approach hard things like they're easy, you're going to end up frustrated at best and miserable at worst. Take breaks while you study. Take breaks while you study. No, I'm not kidding. I'm choosing to start the scheduling talk here because I think that this is absolutely essential. There's often an expectation that students are just going to run themselves into the ground cramming every finals, and that's normal, but it's not healthy, and it's also not an option for students who have other responsibilities like jobs or childcare that need their attention and energy. You're an animal. You're made out of meat. In order to continue functioning, you can't just work all the time. Studying is a brain activity, but your brain is part of your body. Take care of your body. Sleep. Eat, drink water, stretch, breathe. Doing this will give you better results because you're not wearing out your brain every time you sit down to study. The best way to make sure you're taking breaks is to incorporate them into your study time. Split up your study session into periods of work with breaks in between each period. A popular method of doing this is called the Pomodoro method, in which users will study for 25-minute increments and then take a break for 5 to 10 minutes in between each of those periods. And every fourth break is longer, more like 20 to 30 minutes. Personally, I like doing 50-minute work periods with 10-minute breaks in between each. The reason why I like and recommend doing these work break splits is because having that built-in expected break gives you a chance to listen to your body. You can use this time to go to the bathroom, walk around, get something to eat, whatever your body needs. These breaks can be especially helpful for people who have a hard time hearing these internal signals. In addition to doing the time splits, set a time to stop studying for the day and stick to it. I know it's tempting to stay up really late cramming, but a good night's sleep or even a bad night's sleep will do you a world of good. And if you're somebody that needs a deadline in order to get work done, this is your daily deadline. There are a lot of study techniques out there, so I'm not even going to try to cover all of them. These are just some of the more popular ones. I love flashcards. In case you're new to the noble and excellent flashcard, flashcards are traditionally made on index cards, but there are websites and apps that you can use these days to make digital ones. They have a topic, word, question, or piece of information that you want to know about on one side, that's the cue, and the corresponding details, definition, or answer you want to memorize on the other. To study with them, you look at the side with the cue on it and try to recite or recall the information on the back. Then you can check if you're correct and either move on to the next card or retry this one and repeat. When I'm making flashcards, I'm looking for a few specific things. One card per concept. Don't try to mix them together. A simple cue. An amount of information I can reasonably memorize on the back. And as many cards as I need in order to successfully study. You can use flashcards by quizzing yourself or by having a friend read one side out loud and ask you to reply with the information on the other side. This is, in my opinion, a more labor-intensive practice than making flashcards, but I know a lot of people find it easier. It's a way of winnowing down how much information you need to study down to what's really important. Basically, you're creating the test that you think that your teacher is going to be making. You ask the questions that you think that they're going to ask. The point isn't for you to take the test that you created, although you certainly can. It's to make you consider what it is that the teacher thinks is important. What do they want you to get out of this class? Where are they hoping that you'll remember? Going through your class materials in this way will help you study not only through just normal review, but also because you're asking to synthesize that information into key ideas. Once you're done writing the test, you can go through the questions and review the related information until you feel comfortable with the materials. Some teachers make it difficult to make practice tests by only asking questions based on things that were in the footnotes, or including questions about personal tangents that they went on in class. So it's good to know your teacher's little quirks before you make your practice test. If you've never taken a test with this teacher before, you can ask around. I can basically guarantee you that if they're the type of teacher who writes questions like this, everybody is going to be willing to tell you about it. Name mnemonics don't work for every subject, but it's fun when you can make them work. This is a method of remembering items in a collection. Rather than having to remember a group of disparate words, you use the first letters or first couple of letters of each word in the collection and turn that into a new word or a name or a sentence that's easier to remember. For example, it's hard to remember Mercury, Earth, Jupiter, whatever, but it's much easier to remember my very eager mother just served us nachos, or using Roy G. Biv to remember the colors of the rainbow. The sentence, word, or name that you use serves as a cue to help you remember the words in the collection, which means you also have to know the words in the collection. Roy G. Biv doesn't mean anything unless you also know red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. The sentence, frogs are polite, being very courteous, is an awesome sentence, but you won't be able to write it down as an answer on a test about carboxylic acids. Unfortunately. You also don't always have to come up with your own name mnemonics. There's lots of lists online. Rewrite the notes that you took during class, ideally by hand if you can. Handwriting is better than typing, both for learning and for memory, because it requires you to use multiple parts of your brain all at once. By doing this, you are 1, going over exactly what you covered in class, and 2, making use of those active brain connections to help store the information even better. You don't want to do this for all the material, just your notes. You could copy your textbook by hand, but it would be really time consuming, and the important information to words written ratio would be bad. The efficacy of this will vary somewhat depending on how good your notes are. So if you know that you're somebody who struggles with taking good notes, you can always reach out to some classmates and see if anybody would be willing to either let you borrow their notes or send you a photo of them so that way you can copy those instead of your own. I saved this one for last because it's a pretty common study method, but it is not very cost effective, especially if this is your only method of studying. Rereading includes your notes, your readings, and also other classroom materials. I would advise against using this as your only study method because it's just going to be too much information. It's just going to be too much. And a good chunk of that information won't even be useful to you. On top of that, it is extremely time consuming. This can be a good first step so that way you can go back over what was covered in class and decide what you want to study, or as a refresher in case you forgot any of the topics that you covered. But on its own, not ideal. It's all well and good to know how you like to study, but knowing what to study can be just as challenging. But like other skills, it gets easier with practice. There are two main issues I see a lot of people deal with in this area, and that's studying way too much or covering what ends up being the wrong material for the test. When you're deciding what to study, you want to consider, is this topic or subject something that is important to the unit if you're not studying for finals, or if you are, the class as a whole? Is this something that your professor or teacher has emphasized as being important? And is this something that you already know? You can remember this as the 3 Ps: big picture, professor, and prior knowledge. You can determine if something is part of the big picture by asking yourself a few questions about it. Is this topic, subject, or piece of information something that I have discussed or used in assignments more than once during the course of the class? Is understanding this topic or subject a necessary step in understanding other topics we've covered in class? If the answer to one or both of these questions is yes, then chances are it's part of the big picture of the course and worth studying. If your teacher or professor has emphasized the importance of a topic, especially if they have said that it's going to be on the test, it's worth studying. If you already feel confident in your understanding and knowledge of something, then there's no need to study it more than a cursory refresh. Your time is better spent on other subjects that need your attention. The purpose of asking yourself these questions is to narrow down what you're studying. If you find yourself deciding that every topic meets this criteria, stop and go back. You have a limited amount of time to study. Even if you feel like you need to go through and read over every single note you took and every single reading you were assigned, you probably don't. Even cumulative finals can't actually cover every single thing that was touched on in class because you only have an hour or a couple of hours to take them. Also, you've been taking this class all semester, so chances are you do already know some of this. If it's helpful, you can think of this priority list. Focus on things that you don't know, that are part of the big picture, and that your professor has emphasized as being important. After that, focus on things that you don't know that your professor has emphasized as being important but aren't part of the big picture. Then, focus on things that you don't know that are part of the big picture but that your professor hasn't emphasized. After that, you can kind of do whatever you want. By prioritizing in this way, you're making sure that you're spending some of your limited study time on the things that are really important before going on to the things that are less important. If you're somebody who often feels like you've studied completely the wrong material for a test, it's probably worth reaching out to either your teacher or professor or your school's studying center or tutoring center. While they won't be able to tell you exactly what's on a test, they will be able to talk you through the selection process and give you feedback on your selection methods. That way it'll be easier for you in the future. Sometimes, no matter how much you study, a topic will still be confusing. At this point, you're going to have to look past your notes and readings for solutions. This takes 2 main forms: asking people you know and asking the internet. Oftentimes, professors will be available during office hours to answer students' questions. It can be intimidating to go to office hours, especially the first time, but it's usually really worth it. Also, I found it's way easier than trying to figure something out by sending an email or many emails between myself and my professor. If you're a high school student, you may not have this option, as teachers don't usually have much or any extra time to work one-on-one, but it's worth asking anyway because they might want to answer your question in class to help other students as well, or they may be able to direct you to other resources. Other students can also be a good source for extra explanations. This can be in person or in a group chat. You can also organize a class or group meetup so that way everybody can go over their areas of confusion and work on solutions together. There are a lot of educational resources available on the internet. Khan Academy is a really popular one that has an enormous number of resources on an enormous number of topics. Believe it or not, some people make educational content and post it on YouTube for students in your exact situation. StackExchange was a popular forum back when I was studying computer science. Ask your peers. They probably know about resources that I haven't even heard of yet. I would really so strongly advise against using AI for this. I mean, listen, it'll give you an answer, but if you don't understand the concept, then there's no way for you to confirm whether the information you're getting is correct. AI hallucinates. It makes stuff up. If it worked flawlessly, this might be a different conversation, but as it stands, the other options are just better. Despite how much studying is disliked by students, it's still a large and important part of many, if not most, educational experiences. It's therefore necessary to get a firm understanding of the processes that studying can entail. As with all skills I cover in these videos, this isn't a declaration of the only way to do this if you want to succeed. Do what works for you, and if you don't know what works for you, practice until you do. You may find that one study method works for you every time, or you may find that you need a different study method for different subjects. Thanks so much for tuning in. Check back in the future to see more videos like this geared at clarifying educational goals and practices. Have a good one.